'Cause he gets up in the morning, then he goes to work at night.
Legendary producer Shel Talmy has been at the helm of some of the most exciting and influential recordings in rock and roll history. Talmy, an American living in London in the pre-dawn of the British invasion, found himself in the right place at the right time to discover and produce such iconic acts as the Kinks and the Who. The versatility of his production style has resulted in collaborations with such artists as Manfred Mann, Chad and Jeremy, The Small Faces, The Pentangle, and David Bowie, among others.
The first thing I wanted to ask you was, what got you interested in music? Was there a moment early in life that was there a record or something or an artist?
Do you mean the moment? No, I don't think so. I think you grow up with music. I've always liked music, and there was no. I don't think there's any epiphany that said, "Oh yeah, this is the lightning struck. Here I am involved with music." No, I've always liked music. I do remember that the first band that really got me interested in R&B and blues was G by the Crows. That really did it for me.
Love that girl, oh, 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 G.
So what made you decide to get into music production?
I kind of fell into it. I was at ABC Television, and I was a page and then a floor manager, and I used to hang out at a bar that was mainly for people in the music biz. And one of the guys I met was English, owned a studio, and we got chatting, and he said, come along, which I did, and so I was getting bored with the TV thing and said, the hell with it, I'll go do this. He asked me to come in and start. He'll train me as an engineer, which he did. So That's what I started doing. Wow. And it kind of went on from there.
Wow, interesting. So you sort of phased out of television and got more into the...
It was highly political, and I was, I thought, albeit that all of showbiz is highly political, but going into an independent studio was far less so.
How did you get to the UK?
I was 21, thought the world was passing me by, and I thought it would be nice if I went to see Europe for 5 or 6 weeks, and did every intention of coming back after that time, but took the notion with me that perhaps I could work there a little because I didn't have much bread, and work for a couple of 3 weeks, and while I was seeing England and the rest of Europe, and so I made as many contacts as I could from the guys here in town, and took demos with me that I hadn't done, and got there. And when one of the first places, the first place I walked into was Decca. And I related a whole bunch of hits that I hadn't done and played them a couple of demos, which happened to be the 2 demos I brought with me were from my friend Nick Vinay at Capitol, and they were the Beach Boys and Lou Rawls. So he said, "That's terrific. You start today." So, and by the time they found out it was all a bunch of crapola, I already had a hit, so that was it.
Now, when you played those records that you claimed to have been involved with, did Nick back you up when they called?
Oh, yeah, no, Nick gave them to me. He said, help yourself, tell them whatever you like, tell them they're yours. I said, great, and as it happens, I mean, I returned the favor, but didn't find that out for 20 years afterwards, was that I wrote Nick or called Nick, I can't remember which, and said, I told him about a band that he really ought to listen to called the Beatles. And he ran to Capitol, to the head of Capitol, and that's how the Capitol wound up with the Beatles records.
Wow.
And which I didn't find out until 20 years later because he never told me.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. 1962 was a pretty exciting time to be in England musically.
Well, it was the transition year, I think, from it was just the beginning of swinging London. It hadn't quite started to swing yet, but it did a few months. It started a few months later, so I got there right at the beginning.
Yeah, that was a great timing on your part.
Yeah. Well, timing is everything, isn't it?
One of the first artists that you wound up working with over there and discovering
when
was...
I got to Decca, basically the first artist they gave me was an Irish band of three harmonica players called the Bachelors. And in retrospect, I think maybe they were testing me because these guys were just harmonica players and they didn't sing. So I had them up at my tiny little flat for about 5 or 6 weeks, rehearsing them and telling who to sing where and all that kind of stuff. And so we finally we went and did this, and they were doing what I'd have to call pseudo country. I'm fresh in the States, and not that I'm any expert in country music, but I know it a hell of a lot better than most of the Brits do. and this was really bugging me. I was listening to this garbage. So, anyways, I thought, okay, fine. I'm here. I will do it. I will go in. We did 4 sides in a 3-hour session, which was normal then. I did an old song that they did called Charmaine, and it became a huge hit.
Charmaine, my Charmaine, cries in vain, cries in vain.
Took me, I think, like 15 or 20 minutes to do the track. So there we
Wow, amazing. So you had a hit right out of the box.
Yeah, I did.
Now, how soon after this did you come to discover the Kinks?
About a year later, I think. Maybe not quite that. I was actually in Denmark Street, which is where all the music publishers were. I had some friends there. I was at a publisher's, standing in the hallway. I was about to go have lunch with somebody, and one of the Kinks managers walked in with a demo, and he said, they were the Ravens at that point. He said, anybody here would be interested in listening to this? I said, sure, I'm here. I'll listen to it. And liked a lot of what I heard a lot, and took him into Pi, because by this time I decided that I was expanding my horizon. I was, I think, the first independent producer in England. I'm pretty sure I was. And by this time, Decca had already turned down 2 artists and me that I thought I should be doing, which were Manfred Mann and Georgie Fame. So I thought, it's about time I moved out and got other stuff going. So
wow.
I took them in the Pi, and like that.
So that the fact that you brought these artists, Georgie Fame and Manfred Mann, to Decca, and they turned them down. That's what motivated you to go independent.
Yes. Well, no, I told Dick Rowe from minute number 1 that I was an independent producer from America. He was very pro-American, and the reason I did that was because I had found out before I went anywhere that everybody in England as a producer was strictly on a weekly salary, which was not particularly generous, with no royalties. And I said, I am an independent producer, therefore I get royalties.
Yeah, that was pretty smart, actually.
Yeah. Well, I was brash, and I didn't care because I thought I was going back to L.A. shortly anyways. It didn't matter.
So, do you remember what the demo was from the Ravens that you heard? Do you remember what the song was?
There was about 8 or 9 songs on it.
Okay.
Most of which I never used, but a couple I did, and I can't remember exactly which ones they were. As a matter of fact, that when we first went in, they didn't have a drummer. They at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I got Bobby Graham to come and do the drumming. It wasn't until after that I got Mick Avery into the band.
And one of the early recordings that you had done with them, You Really Got Me, which was just an incredibly dynamic record. Pretty much, I would say you're capturing a very live feeling in the studio.
Well, that's what I always went for, was that. And also, I had spent a lot of time when I was doing my engineering, getting better and better sounds, or trying to, and doing. I did a lot of work in isolation of instruments and how to get more out of drums and out of bass and miking and all that kind of stuff. So I brought all that with me. But I always liked the live. I wanted to get a live sound, not an obvious studio sound.
I would say very common in those records that you did at that era. I mean, there's a common thread of excitement and live feel.
Well, I'm glad it came through, because that's certainly what I was after. And at that point in time, the English recording situation was what they would call in England is very polite. Mm-hmm. It was it was technically nice, but it was not particularly exciting.
The early records you made with the Kinks, basically got you over to into the Who camp.
Well, it's because of the Kinks that the Who managers sought me out to come and listen to the Who, and which I did. And I mean, so yes, it's because of the Kinks that the Who found me, right?
Yeah, and you went to see them in a church hall.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, and now what was it like to see the Who back then?
Well, they were. I mean, I think I've said this before in print, but it took me about 30 seconds to realize this is the best rock band I heard in England at that point. They were exciting, and they could play well, and all that kind of stuff. So it was a no-brainer as far as I was concerned.
And then there were some demos that were brought to you that Pete Townshend did?
Well, the first one was I Can't Explain, which is about a minute and 10-second demo when I heard it. Mm-hmm. And I worked with them on lengthening it. I mean, it was never real long. It was about 2:20, 2:30, I think. Mm-hmm. And, put in a couple of solos and like that. I also, of course, used the Ivy League as backing vocalists, because they weren't doing backing vocals at that time, but it sure spurred them on to learning how to do them. Mm.
And the Ivy Leagues were an artist that was in the UK
Ivy
at the time?
Was a 3-guy vocal band in England who had a hit.
Wow.
They were doing backing vocals also.
And they're doing the backing vocals on Can't Explain.
I Can't Explain, yeah.
Yeah. Now, again, it's. I read somewhere that Pete Townshend was trying to write sort of like a Kinks style song.
Yeah,
in terms of the riff.
I've read the same stuff. It's probably true.
Yeah. But the interesting thing is that you produced both records. You produced You Really Got Me and Can't Explain. They sound different, but they're both incredibly dynamic and exciting sounding records.
Like I said, what I hear, what I'm hearing, what I went for. So I suppose in that case you will hear similarities. Yes.
Yeah. Now, what was it like working with them in the studio in these early days?
With the Who?
With the Who, yeah.
The Who were great. No, I've never had a problem with them. In fact, it's very seldom I've ever had a problem with a band or a musician or whatever, because I have great respect for bands and musicians. Mm-hmm. My problems have always been with management.
Mm-hmm. That seems to be a common thing I hear a lot, is the people who surround the artists tend to complicate matters more.
Yeah, you can certainly say that. That's a fact.
Yeah. Did you have tensions with Lambert and Stamp? Or?
Well, mainly Lambert. Stamp was virtually a no-show. Lambert, many problems.
I guess maybe it was a control issue.
Oh, he was a control freak, among other things. I mean, I'm not saying anything that anybody doesn't know. He was extremely gay, mm-hmm. and got to the point of apparently believing that I was having too much influence with his boys, quote unquote. So,
oh boy.
that was part of the whole situation that developed.
People try to put us to down. Talking about my generation.
You went on to produce the first album, the Who Sing My Generation.
Yep.
Very, very, very exciting record. Amazing songs on that record. But that's pretty much the only thing you did with them.
Well, that's because I was quote unquote dismissed. But the letter in the mail saying your services are no longer required, at which point I said I don't think so, and I sued, and of course won.
Right.
But I never got a chance to record them again, which is unfortunate.
It's a legal matter, baby. A legal matter from now on.
And also, the records soon after weren't as exciting or dynamic. I think it took a while for them to find their footing.
John, you're not the first person to say that. I mean, yes, I agree, but I think that's for other people to say rather than me.
Yeah, although, I mean, it must have been... I mean, you were around two of Britain's greatest writers at the time, Ray Davies and Pete Townsend.
And which I consider myself extremely fortunate because, as far as I'm concerned, everything starts with the song, and I really had two of the best writers of all time in the rock business.
Also, when you recorded the Can't Explain, was it in fact turned down in the UK at Decca?
No, it was turned down by British Decca.
British Decca, yes.
Yeah, no, I took it to American Decca, who is a separate company, although they, once upon a time, were connected, and sold it to them, which was actually turned out to be quite ironic because, of course, American Decca still had a distribution contract with English Decca, so they had to put the record out.
And also, I read somewhere that when you recorded the follow-up to Can't Explain, Anyway, Anyhow, Anywhere, and you sent it off to them, it was...
Yeah, this is the first record, to my knowledge, that had feedback on it, which was difficult to record with the gear at the time. And, yeah, I got a telegram back saying, we think you sent us the wrong track because there's all these strange noises on it, so I had to assure them this is the way it's supposed to be.
There was also a lot of feedback as well, I think, on those early Kinks records too. Not all of them, but on some of them, which I think...
Well, the main thing I think, there was not so much feedback, but the one thing I did with some of the early Kinks records is See My Friends, to my knowledge, is the first record out there that had a sitar sound on it. It wasn't actually an actual sitar because we didn't know anybody who played sitar, so we tuned the guitar down and I double-tracked it and it sounded like a sitar.
Wow.
And that certainly preceded Norwegian Wood and stuff like that. So that was fun. That was a first, yeah.
See my friend.
Now, also, you had working with you, you had Jimmy Page as a session man,
right,
and Nicky Hopkins as well. Yeah. And they're on a lot of those records for the artists you worked with.
They are, mainly as, Jimmy generally only played rhythm for me. I was very comfortable having him there just in case. And that's what he did, is play, rhythm guitar.
Yeah.
Or unless I was doing, a band that wasn't a band, and it's employing musicians. And Nicky was back up on lots of stuff, and actually became a regular with The Who and with a lot of other people.
And he's just a phenomenal piano player. So
yeah, he was great.
Yeah,
he was great,
and
a very nice guy along with it.
He's a session man.
And you went on to produce his first solo album.
I did, yeah, which was fun for CBS. It was like an orchestral album, which actually I heard not all that long ago. It sounds pretty damn good. I was surprised.
Was Jimmy Page playing on both Kinks and Who records, or just sporadically?
He didn't play. Let me think. What did he do? He played on the Kinks album. He played rhythm because Ray didn't want to play guitar. He wanted to concentrate on singing. And I certainly used Jimmy on as the rhythm guitar on I Can't Explain, and and I think that's really about all I ever used him on for the Who. But I used him on lots of other stuff.
Was there any sense then that he was going to go on to become the Jimmy Page that we all know and love?
Well, I mean, he was so good. It was, I guess in the cards. Sure.
Yeah.
No, I had no inkling he was going to go on to where he got, but he certainly made the most of everything.
Yeah, that's for sure. He plays on a lot of diverse recordings too. I mean, he was playing with Mickey Most, I believe.
Terrific guitarist.
Now, some other artists that you worked with. I mean, great songs, really important rock and roll records. For instance, the Easy Beats. You did "Friday on My Mind," which is
right.
their best known track. What was that experience like?
Well, again, I got I'm fine with the band. I got screwed by the management, basically. No, they came over. They again sought me out. They came over from Australia. I didn't when I first heard them. I liked them. I didn't particularly care for the material. I had them writing stuff, and they used to come up and visit me once a week, and with what they'd written. And I finally, when I heard Friday Night, I said, "Okay, this is the one. So let's go do it."
You seem to have an ear of which was the track that was going to cut through.
I guess. I mean, I suppose it's reasonable to say that I always considered myself part of the listening public. So if I like something, I thought there's a good chance that maybe the public would like it. So
yeah. You were a fan, basically. You were a fan of music.
Oh yeah, I was a fan.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of great musicians.
Mm. And you definitely worked with a lot of them through the years.
Yeah, certainly have.
Yeah. Now another artist, The Creation.
Creation were one of my very favorite bands. Eddie Phillips is probably the best, by far, unknown guitarist that hardly anybody knows.
Mm.
He was still around. He's still playing gigs. He's a wonderful guitarist. Very creative. Lots of. He was asked to join the Who, and he didn't, which I think he regrets these days.
Wow.
And he was asked to join a whole bunch of other bands, and didn't. The Creation were on the verge of becoming huge superstars, and I could not hold them together. The two, he and the lead singer, hated each other, and they just broke up.
Oh,
that
boy.
was the end of that,
That's
unfortunately.
I think it was Making Time was in Rushmore.
Yes,
a few years ago.
It was, and another one as well. I forget which one. They had two songs in there. As a matter of fact, a lot of the Creation stuff has been used for commercials and in films and all kinds of stuff in the last bunch of years. One of their songs is in something that has been in something every year for years and years and years.
So I guess it took a while to for people to catch on to The Creation.
Well, it's because they broke up so early. They only have ever become a cult band. Just, people who really like good bands, and they were a terrific band. Know the Creation, but they certainly never reached their potential.
And it's interesting that there's a thread through these these artists, and I've always thought, listening to these records and seeing your name on the album jackets and CD covers and things, I thought to myself, there was a technique to how you went about recording these artists, and I was thinking about it. It's almost
really?
like,
Tell me what it was. I'd like to know. What's the technique?
Well, it's almost, you seem to have had this ability of capturing lightning in a bottle, and it sounds like, to me, I always thought you were recording the artists live in the studio with either as few microphones as possible or as many. I'm not too sure. But it seems like the limitations of the technology at the time almost added to the process.
Well, you're right up to a point. It's a little bit of both, actually. I actually brought with me miking drums with about a dozen mics. When I got there and started doing that, people said, "You can't do that little phase." And I said, "Well, that's the way it is. You should listen, And 3 months later, everybody's using a dozen mics. So, so I did that. I did mic where I thought they should work, and of course, I said I'd done a lot of work as an engineer on trying to get the best possible sounds with where to mic it, how to mic it, with which mics, and isolation and all that kind of stuff. So it wasn't just trial and error.
Right.
And yes, I certainly was going for, as I said, the live sound.
Yeah.
And I did record everybody at the same time, not one instrument at a time, which I know is a lot of producers like doing. I'm not one of them.
Comparing your style of recording an artist from the 60s compared to the 70s, 80s, and beyond, where it became multi-tracking, punching in the bass line, basically taking hours and hours to get a drum sound. I mean, this is pretty much not at all.
It kind of wrings all the emotion and all the feel out of a song to do that. So that's why I never did it.
You're known for a lot of hard rock that you recorded, but also there was some lighter stuff that you did.
No, I did a bunch of folk and jazz oriented. I mean, I did the Pentangle, which I still believe is the best folk / jazz group that there ever was. I think they were fabulous. I did Chad and Jeremy
and Bert Jantz as well.
I'm sorry, who?
Bert Jantz.
Yes, yeah. Well, Bert Jantz was part of Pentangle.
Yeah.
And Manfred Mann, of course, and Amen Corner, and I did a bunch of different things.
Yeah, as well as working with David Bowie very, very early on in his career.
Yes, well, I actually, Bowie was brought to me by somebody I knew at 17, and I mean, I thought at the time he was going to be a huge star, but we were about 6 years ahead of the market, I'm afraid, because things I did with him just were not saleable at that time. But about 5 or 6 years later, when he finally scored, there was exactly what we were doing, 6 years previously.
Yeah.
One of those things that I got my timing wrong.
This was also the time, I think, where he was going by the name David Jones.
Yes, he was. He was Davy Jones at that time.
But had to change his name because of Davy Jones and the Monkees.
Yeah, because of the Monkees. Right?
You stopped recording sometime around, or producing sometime in the 70s?
Yeah, I got bored with it. I started doing a lot of other stuff. I had other companies in music, rather in book publishing. I had other things going, and in retrospect, I'm kind of sorry I did, but I had too many interests, and I was indulging them.
Did you ever hear artists later on, maybe in the late 70s, that you say, boy, I wish I got a chance to work with them? Or did you ever have those kind of moments?
There's a bunch of artists I wish I'd had the opportunity to work with, and maybe if I, again, had been in the right place at the right time, I would have, or had been more aggressive about doing it, I would have, but it didn't happen that way. So.
Yeah. That's really, I wanted to just to circle back to one other thing. There, you were with the Kinks for a pretty long time. I mean, up until the Something Else album. And
well, I think the last thing I did was Waterloo Sunset.
Waterloo Sunset, which is, one of Ray's greatest songs. And
right.
Dirty old river.
Sonically, a different approach, in terms of your production style.
Well,
but
not necessarily, because as you pointed out, I did lots of other stuff. So my background is not just hard rock or pop.
Right.
And I try to do a track depending on what the track was, and not have it all sound exactly the same. So it was always different. I approached it as the song was preeminent, and we take it from there.
Definitely, there's a lot of diversity, and especially, I mean, the Kinks were evolving and the recording technique seemed to be evolving with it.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Well, I think we're pretty much done, Shel.
Okay, great.
I wanted to thank you for taking the time to chat with us and sharing your experiences. And thanks for all the really great, exciting music through the years.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it.